Got it. Recording in progress. Okay, thank you, Nora. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jessica. Hi, Andrina. Hello, Crystal.
Thanks to everyone who's here, who's joining us right now. Thanks for coming. Um, and we were actually going to do this one in person here, but there's a
hmm
little goof with the meeting room. So I don't know if anyone was planning on coming in, but if you got a note about a quick pivot on that, thank you for rolling with us. And I'm glad Sherilyn can join us too, because she's got so much to add about this whole topic that it's amazing. Scoot a little this way so we can see you. We're we're jammed in here together. Often we're on two Zooms, but I'm Andy Harwood. I'm a co-owner of the Vaz+Harwood team.
I'm Sherline Vaz. Namaste. Hello. I'm so excited to see all of you.
Sherilyn and I own the team together. She's our CEO and I'm our team leader. Nora is on with us too. She's our director of operations, and I think we have Andrina. Andrina is on our team as
And
well as a
Alyssa. We have
realtor.
we
And
have Alyssa also hiding somewhere.
so, hello, hi. So we do this series of classes called Vaz+Harwood Academy. We've got ones for agents and we've got ones for buyers and sellers. So we're just doing as many of these as we can fit into our schedule, just to share what we know and give back everything that we can and kind of share ideas. Um, if I fumble around here a little bit, I am sometimes looking for my computer because I'm hooked up to two monitors that I'm unfamiliar with.
One of the biggest
Okay.
reasons we decided to do this class was because we had a lot of realtors reach out to us and say, "You guys seem to be having so much fun all the time.
Yeah.
How is that possible?" And I'm like, what is not fun about this business? We get, as realtors, we get to be a part of our clients' stories, and we're helping them buy a home. So it's
Mhm.
it's a lot of fun, and very often realtors are like, "What is your secret? What is your secret?" There is no secret. We just are not salesy because I don't come from a sales background, so I really don't know
That's
anything about that.
that's where I was going to start this. I don't want to tell anyone our life story. We'll just make that real short. The point being that we don't have a sales background. We got into real estate from the advertising industry. We're marketers. So we really didn't know. We hadn't done any sales jobs a day in our life. And when we showed up to our first real estate classes and things like that, like doing Ignite at KW, um, I realized that there were people in there who had come from sales, who had done even like Comcast door to door knocking and stuff like
They
that.
were bartenders.
Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or came from another professional sales
Correct.
background or
Correct.
something. And so I was like, oh my God, we are at a super disadvantage because
Yeah.
we're just like hobbled from day one because we don't have any sales background, and
And
these people are going to cream us.
and Lisa has known me right from the day where I said, "Oh my gosh, we are we are going to suck at this completely, and we're going to fail and not do
Yeah,
anything."
and so one of my big worries, and now that we've been in the business several years, and we have a team, and we've sold a lot of houses and all this kind of thing. See, I just said sold. Of course, we always use those words anyway. But now that we've been in this a few
hmm
years and have some perspective, um, I realized that one of my biggest fears getting into the business was that we were going to have to learn how to do sales, like in a salesy classic approach. And now that I have a few years of experience, I know there are a lot of people who have the same worries and are thinking along the same lines, and they're worried about it. And in a lot of cases, in a lot of offices and brokerages and coaching programs and things out there that you can find about real estate, I've noticed that there's a lot of, I think, trying to convince people that you have to do that, or maybe it's some kind of a mindset thing or a limiting belief that you can't, I don't know, call people or whatever. And I'm not saying all calling people is salesy. I want to set this off too by saying I'm not trying to disparage anybody else's approach or anything that is maybe a more traditional sales approach. If it's working for you and it's been successful, or you're doing it successfully, then great. That's awesome.
It completely depends on your personality type.
Hmm.
Andrew is very introverted. I am what you would call an introvert extrovert. And also, I'm not originally from this country. So, very often, I have my own mindset issues about, oh my gosh, people will not understand my accent. I'm not from Minnesota. People will not
Hmm.
want to hire us. And Andrew's also originally from Michigan. So, when we first started out, we thought no one would want to have anything to do with us. So we did what we do best is just get to know people.
Yeah, and
I did open
we'll get
houses.
into more of that too. So I was so worried that we wouldn't be able to be successful because we would have to learn how to do the sales part of it, and make, cold calls and knock on doors. And again, I'm not disparaging those things at all. They work for a lot of people. The other thing I started to realize was that a lot of the people who were successful, who were starting to coach and train us when we were new, and again, all great people and very successful, and I, have the highest respect for everyone. A lot of them had started their businesses in a slightly different era. And by that, I mean, it could have even been 5 or 10 years earlier. And I think the world has changed very quickly. And I think so just to give you the timeline, we started in 2016. And I think a lot of agents who built their businesses and teams um, in the 2000s or even the 90s, things were very different, right? I mean, we didn't even have iPhones until what, just a few years before we started.
Correct.
So, when you're getting advice from people who have built their business in the past and are staying really current with what's going on, it can they can be giving you the old-fashioned advice, but it might be the wrong kind of old-fashioned advice. I do believe in old-fashioned advice, but I think there's maybe some of it that's too old-fashioned, in my opinion.
Keep in mind your the target audience right now are people who want to buy a home, correct, or a condo. So that audience is getting younger and younger. So you can't go with the same old approaches, and that just doesn't make sense. Know your audience, know your market. Good data is what I love about the real estate industry, which is similar to the advertising industry, is you have a tangible data and you can make tweaks and have different approaches accordingly. Above all, this is depending on your personality. There are many ways to be successful in this business. You don't have to change yourself. I always talk about mental health. I have seen people get really get frozen when they have to make a cold call, etc. I freeze because I hate cold calling, and you have to basically discover. It's a process of discovery for yourself. How do you approach? How do you get the clients that you want and you love versus the clients who treat you like crap? Ultimately, you teach your clients how to treat you.
And I'm not disputing at all that you can learn to do, cold calling and things like that. Again, it's surely you can learn those skills, and you might be really good at it. So if that's something that you want to pursue, and you can do that in a non-salesy way too. We'll get to that a little bit more in just a few minutes too, and a few thoughts on that. Um, but if you, I think to build on what Sherilyn was saying, you will have a lot more success. And I think we had more success because we realized what our core strengths were and we focused on that. And we realized that we were marketing people. And I think if we had tried to pretend to be something we're not, it would have been too much of an uphill battle. Um, so I wanted to talk about is real estate even a sales business? And I'm not really convinced that it is. Although we use a lot of lingo talking about real estate sales and sold, and we're selling houses and we're doing sales appointments and all this kind of stuff. But if you really think about it, I don't really know if you can say that real estate is a sales business, in my opinion. If anybody has any other thoughts, feel free to chime in on chat too. This is one person's opinion or two
Mm-hmm.
people's opinion. Sales to me conjures images of people, convincing people that your services and features are better than the competition. Now, if you apply it to houses, in terms of how we're working with our buyers and sellers, I don't feel like I've ever, in hundreds of transactions, I don't feel like I've ever sold a house to anybody. We're more like coaches and educators and guides and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, do you feel like you've ever convinced somebody to buy a house
No,
by
no,
saying how great the kitchen is or something? I mean, you
no.
see that stuff on TV, right?
Yep.
But in reality, the best realtors, everybody I know who's great in this business, they don't do that. Right.
You also can't do it because there's a fiduciary, there's this, I think it's an ethics thing where you're not allowed to coerce a client into buying something that they don't want to do, etc., etc. And
But when you see a realtor in a movie,
movie,
it's
yeah.
always like oh, this place is great. I wouldn't let this one slip through my
Mm-hmm.
like all those kind of cliche
Mm-hmm.
sort of things. But anybody who's bought it or sold a house with a good realtor knows that we don't do that. We're
Mm-hmm.
helping them with information and guiding them through the process and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure real estate isn't a sales business from that aspect, but then
Mm-hmm.
but then are we selling our own services like our listing
Mm-hmm.
process and that kind of thing to customers? I think maybe you can make an argument there, um, that we're selling ourselves and our businesses and our careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think kind of to segue from that, is anything really a sales business anymore? Real estate aside, I think people have changed a lot, and kind of to our earlier point about, people who built their businesses in a different era and are coaching people with those old techniques. I mean, we used to have phone books, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people used to do more cold calling. I remember when I was growing up, it seemed like the phone would always ring with a solicitor of some
Mm-hmm.
kind. I don't know, probably didn't,
Correct.
it was different in India,
No,
but
we did have sales books. We still have them there.
um, so people are
White peaches.
the public is on Google and social media
Mm-hmm.
right now,
Mm-hmm.
and
Everyone has a device.
I think I think we're seeing business go from more like it's both going to more of an automated online sort of thing where the customer is used to simply going to a website and kind of ordering what they want and not talking to anybody, like Amazon or,
Mm-hmm.
Expedia or things like that. And of course, there's been this whole debate in the real estate industry. Are we going to go the way of the travel agent business? And I don't think there's a chance of that happening entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because real estate is just too big of a purchase. It's too emotional, and there's too many human factors involved. It's not
Correct.
like buying an Uber ride versus a taxi or plane tickets. No disrespect to travel agents, because we still know a
Mm-hmm.
personal travel agent and they're out there. It's just not what it used to be.
Correct.
So
They had to sharpen their skills as
yeah.
well.
So where I'm going with this is I think there's a lot more, like if you look at bigger trends in the world and how real estate fits into that, there's both the customer like me
Mm-hmm.
wants to go, to Amazon or something and just order it. And I think there's going to be some of that in real estate too, more and more. We're seeing like iBuyer programs where, people can sell their house automatically. Um, so we'll see more of that, but I think on the real estate, dare I say, sales end of it, like what we do, um, uh, people want more and more to know who they're doing business with, what their values are. Do I have a relationship with this person? Is it a referral of somebody that helped me, or am I looking at their website and seeing the
Mm-hmm.
right like human connections?
Mm-hmm.
And I think more and more, especially younger people who are going to be our next generation of clients, that's what they're looking for, and they know when they're being sold. And like Nora, can you vouch for this? Am I right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hate being sold. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know that for any other business. Um, and personally, we went to a lot of open houses when we were looking for a realtor. I was a client of Andy and Sherline's. And you know, the minute someone's trying to sell you, right? When you walk into that open house, you know, when you're the agent, right? Are you trying to sell them? Are you trying to engage in conversation and find out what they want?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really think like sales is a thing of the past period, and people want a relationship with who they're doing business with, or they
Correct.
want to know their values and kind of kind of where they come from.
Correct.
And that's happens with bigger brands too, right? People are caring more like where Starbucks gets its coffee and what kind of packaging Amazon uses and that
Correct.
sort of thing. So people are looking for even at the high big corporate level more of what the values are than just this is the quickest and most efficient thing out there.
Keep in mind, you are your brand. That is something a lot of realtors tend to forget. You are your brand,
I got a whole
and
slide in there
how
for
you,
that
oh,
too.
of course,
So
and
don't
how
get too
you,
far into it.
so how you decide to do business is an extension of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I want everybody to remember, and I've got to remind myself of this. In fact, we should put like a sign in the office too. We make these little placards for our office that have little quotes and things, and they're all over the place. We should have one of these too, Nora. But people genuinely love real estate and they want to talk about real estate. So sometimes we think, well, I don't want to bother people. And yeah, you can bother people. And I've sat through some trainings and things personally where I thought if I do what they're telling me, I'm going to bother people. But people really do want to talk about real estate. There's a reason why I know everyone will cringe who's a realtor here, but Zillow is so popular because they made it easy for the public to find real estate information and people are hooked on it like a drug or something. They're just like obsessively. In fact, it's so much that Saturday Night Live made a skit about Zillow. I don't know if anyone saw that. It was probably
Yep.
4 years ago or something. That it was just funny. It was like someone who was just staying at home with a glass of wine, not going on a date, just looking at Zillow
Yep.
instead of like dating ads.
Yep.
um, HDTV and all this stuff, all these realtor shows that we cringe at, and selling South Beach and whatever. People love real estate, and if you're in real estate, they want to hear from you because they like to talk about real estate.
Yep. It's it's I it always surprises me because we are in this business and we walk in and everyone wants to, what is the market like? What are the houses? What are your cool houses? And very often, even though I am exhausted, I try to summon up as much energy as possible to respond to them. But here's why. People in my mind, I had the idea that past clients, friends, etc., did not love real estate. They just wanted to buy their house. I also, in my head, I thought that I had the mindset that past clients did not want to hear from me because sometimes we would send newsletters, etc.,
I had that mindset too. I was
never
so
hear anything, and
phobic
then
of bothering people that I thought I
and
didn't want to
yep.
hear from us.
And out of the blue, one of the things I've started doing, here's a great tip if you want to write it down. I've started making videos and saying happy birthday and Janam Din Mubarak or happy anniversary to our clients. I sent a little, a quick video using my iPhone, and I've just said, I have to get over my mindset. Let's just send it. And they'll probably not respond. They'll probably not hate me. They'll probably just laugh or ignore me.
No, they won't.
Each and every person that I send the videos to, send my personalized videos to, write back right away, oh my God, how are you, etc. And then it gets into a conversation, and then it's wonderful to catch up with them,
Yeah,
especially the
totally.
ones who are introverted. I've got to learn, I've got to realize that there are other people who are like me, introverted and shy. And people think, oh, Shoreline is very gregarious, etc. No, it's it's like acting. So it's like acting. You There's a stage, you go on, you act, you come off, blah blah blah. But when I realized that clients are actually enjoyed these videos. We started sending them out, and people were like, "Oh my God, we love those videos. Thank you for making our day." One client actually said, "You're the only one who remembered my birthday today. I haven't. My own parents and siblings didn't." And I got onto a phone call with her right away, and she said, "I've been depressed, etc." We ended up having a long conversation. Your boy, people, I think post COVID, what one of the things we need to know is that people are hurting. A lot of people are lonely, and with devices, while having smart devices and technology has served in making life efficient, it has also served in making people even more isolated and lonely, and not having that human connection. So, as a
Hmm.
realtor, how can you be a a nicer human being? Just reach out and say hello.
That's actually another point about this whole topic that I think things have changed since the pandemic, and we're seeing the effects of that and how it's all shaking out. On the one hand, we have more Zoom calls like we're all on now, obviously, and that's great. But I think also people are hungry for more genuine interactions with businesses too, and that's something that you can leverage to a huge advantage. Um, to
Mm-hmm,
be more both feet in the
mm-hmm,
future, in my
mm-hmm,
opinion. I wanted to make another point about this one too. It's not just real estate they love. People love you,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes we don't want to think too much of ourselves or whatever. But people genuinely are interested in you, and I guarantee everybody has something that is interesting about them. It doesn't have to be something wild. Um, Sherilyn is really into plants, and I had no idea. To me, every plant is the same. They all look the same to me. But I had no idea that there's this huge community of people who pay, $200 for a plant clipping or something. And so she posts pictures of her plants and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
we can get into some more tactic things in a few minutes. But I just wanted to make the point that people genuinely are interested in what other people are doing. So they want to hear about real estate, and they want to hear from you, and they want to hear about you. So don't feel shy to put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that's what makes you unique too
Mm-hmm.
and stand out from other people. Um, so if we're not going to do a salesy approach, and what do we mean by that exactly too? So uh, I just had somebody tell me that I should basically drop everything I'm doing and start cold calling people and just start dialing. And I can't dispute that advice from like a really uh, objective level. It makes sense,
It
but
worked for that
it
individual
worked
well.
for other people, and it's not what built our business, and it's not the trajectory that we're on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would have to retool my entire thinking and approach to do that and basically be somebody completely different. It doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so so that's kind of what I mean by the traditional sales call. If you're not in real estate or you're thinking about getting into real estate, a lot of realtors get a dialing system and buy lists of people. Sometimes people whose houses are expired or in a neighborhood. And again, these are all good tactics. I'm not trying to say there isn't business there or it's not a good thing to do. It's one way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about the non-salesy way of doing it. Um, so if we're not going to be doing those kind of things, what are we replacing that with? Um, and I think the number one thing in my mind is that and even if you are making the sales calls like that, if you have the mindset that you're always coming from contribution instead of trying to sell something and convince people, they when you're even in sales courses, they say, especially these days, you need to listen more than you talk, and don't tell, just listen. Um, but we always want to be coming from something of contribution and value. So if we're providing information about the market or something that could help um, somebody on their journey to a new house, whether that's a first-time home buyer or a seller,
In
we're coming from contribution, right?
And in my case, very often it's very interesting because people will reach out to me to talk about Indian food. They know I love to travel. They'll reach out to me, hey, Shavline, what is your favorite travel tips? Gardening, indoor plants. That is also coming from contribution, guys. Seriously, our newsletter, while our newsletter has a lot of that we send out every month, I'm often amazed by how many people often reach out to tell us how much they enjoy the recipe that we included of my mother's or grandmother's, whatever, in there. And hey, and I just pick up the phone and say, hey, add more tomatoes or add more ginger, or you can cut the spice if it's too Minnesota hot for you, etc. Not every conversation needs to be about real estate. I mean, that would be boring. If I get bored, chances are your audiences also will get bored. So coming from contribution, it's let the client lead the conversation on real estate or whatever that coming from contribution or value can be.
Yeah, and back to the generational thing of the younger client base. People know more and more when you're being helpful in your sales process, so to speak, versus when you're acting totally in self-interest and just trying to get them to
Correct.
agree to the next thing.
Correct.
So, one thing that's helped us a lot is you could actually replace, and we say lead gen, we say lead generation all the time. I'm not implying I think this is a bad word or concept or anything like that, but I think every time I say lead generation, I think about a task I have to do, and I start to get nervous. And maybe that's a good thing because a little of that keeps you on your toes. But every time I remind myself, it doesn't have to be lead gen, it's just relationship building. Then it's like it's like I come back to a happy center again and I actually get more done personally. I, I engage with more people because I'm not trying to call this person to lead generate. I'm just seeing how they're doing, and we end up getting into a real estate conversation because people are interested in real estate, and then they ask about the market, and then there you are. You just did it.
Yep. Yep. And I I I think I like the people have often asked me too, do you like texting, emailing, for calling people up? Well, guess what? Do what works for you and do what works for the
Do
client.
what works for the client too.
Client. So people are so very often people are like stumped. What do you mean? Well, for instance, I will try to call and then I will leave a message and then I will also text. And depending on how the client responds, okay, this is a client who prefers texting, this is a client who prefers picking up the phone and calling, or there. And then, of course, we've noticed that with certain clients, they'll just love emails. I mean, they will tell you a lot of stories in their emails, and it's very, very fun. So you give them options to how they wish to communicate, but the communication should come from you first.
Sure. Yeah, that's a
And
great.
sometimes that communication is also via Facebook direct messages, Instagram direct messages, and let's not forget LinkedIn. I get a lot of messages from my past colleagues from LinkedIn, and keep in mind, LinkedIn, very often these people are already employed and they are ready to buy or sell their homes.
But you've generated a lot of business, and we've had debates about this in our own structure because we establish our goals, right? Like how many, if you've been in real estate and you understand how to set real estate goals, or if you're new to this, then I'll kind of tell you a little behind the system, behind the scenes. You can take how many closings you want to have, how much money you need to make, how many closings you need to have, and then you kind of work backwards from, well, how many appointments do I need to go on, assuming half those people hire me, or whatever the ratio is. And then for the appointments, how many calls and touch points and stuff do I have to make in order to set those appointments and find people who are, that's classic real estate lead generating, is you talk to 100 people and then 5 of those people might want to talk about, buying or selling.
Correct.
So we've had a lot of debates in our business on the Vaz+Harwood team about, because typically most real estate coaches would say you need to have only real estate conversations with people. Those are the only ones that count. But in terms of the tracking all the numbers, but we've found that that doesn't add up for us, because most of our business has come from not talking about real estate. It just came, the real estate came up at some point, of course.
And it's very often referral based, because we have heard
It was just
people
relationship based.
Yep.
Yeah. Just reaching out and more saying, how are you doing? How was your trip? Just keeping in touch. I thought of you today. Happy birthday, et cetera, rather than pounding people all the time, like, all the time just about real estate and that we need referrals.
Correct.
Because we do some of that too. But.
The second thing is about
Yeah.
creating community, and how have we created community? Well, we moved to a new home, and one of the things was, we knew no one over there. But Halloween was coming up, because we moved in August and Halloween was coming up. So we literally just did a flyer. We just said, we're new to the neighborhood. We're looking to meet our neighbors and friends. And of course, I put we put our logo, our picture, the Vaz+Harwood team logo, etc. And we went and distributed about 100 flyers with my son. And we have 3
dogs.
kids. And the dogs. We took the dogs. Oh, people love dogs.
They didn't make things quicker though.
Yes, they took forever.
Yeah.
We were so surprised that nearly 80 neighbors showed up. And since then, every month
To the Halloween party.
The next thing we did was the Easter egg hunt. We have a huge backyard, and so people have asked me, how much does all of this cost? It costs nothing, because we go to the dollar store, you get your Easter eggs, etc. You buy a huge bag of chips, salsa, whatever.
$50 at the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you just it's all about getting to know your neighbors, and we've just been doing that. Another thing we love, because food is a topic close to my heart personally. We like to collect food. So because I've been throwing these parties, I now drop off my flyers for food collection, food drives, and people now drop off food. We recently, I don't know if I have my flyer over here, but oh gosh, I'm missing it. But we did
okay.
we did a share the love food drive thing, which is CHER, share, because of the first 4 letters of my name, share the love. And we just did a food drive for Valentine's, because it's Valentine's month, the month of love, and people just show up. So my point is, you create your community. You can do whatever you want.
Do you want to talk about what you did during when the mask mandate happened?
Oh
too?
yes, when the mask mandate happened, one of the things that happened around that time, and that was when our business really blew up even further. I mean, I think we tripled our business that year, but we weren't even thinking of things in that way. When the shutdown occurred, I refused to get out of bed. I didn't realize I was spiraling into a depression, but I was. Now that we know that, but at that time I said, oh my gosh, we are doomed. We are losing everything. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to lose our home. Blah 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 blah.
You're talking March 2020.
And March 2020, and in end of March, one of my favorite activist leaders, she's Dr. Nikema Levy Armstrong. I noticed a post. She's someone I absolutely love and adore. She does so much for the Black community in North Minneapolis. That's where she lives. That's her community. She put up a post where she just said, someone gave me about 15 masks, cloth masks, and the
Lots
need
of
is,
people are going to need these.
and
soon.
she said the need was so great that the 15 masks disappeared in 5 minutes, and there were close to 30 people who showed up who can help me find masks. So one of the things I realized very quickly was masks. The masks that you wear, the artificial ones, the paper ones, are going to become a rarity. It's going to become very expensive, and very often it's people who are very poor who come from disadvantaged communities and cities, they are the ones who are going to suffer the most. So I reached out to her and I asked her, I said, how many masks are you looking? She said, Shoreline, there's going to be basically a lot of people in North Minneapolis are going to need it.
We didn't
And
even know at the time. She had the inside scoop that it was going to get mandated
Yeah.
somehow,
Yeah.
just from connections.
She just knew that, and so I decided to use my social media. I went on, I was on all these mom groups. I was on the Nextdoor app. I was on Instagram, and I noticed that there were women to prevent a lot of women, like people who loved sewing, were suddenly just making masks, making cloth masks. So I reached out. I just put up a post in all these social media channels and Facebook groups, Instagram groups, etc., and just said, who knows? The Dr. Nikima is looking for masks for North Minneapolis. We're trying to collect masks. There's a great need. We're going to need a lot. Who is welcome? Who can donate cloth masks? And overnight, that turned into a huge thing because I literally put out our home address on social media.
We didn't
would-
even make the masks. We don't like really know how to sew.
Yeah.
So,
So-
literally overnight, people were dropping off bags of hundreds of them.
Hundreds,
we
yeah.
couldn't believe it.
The first, I remember that the first time I put out that post, we received 350 masks, and I took them to Dr. Nikima, and her jaw dropped. She said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Nope." I said, "How many more do you need?" She said, "This." She said, "Well, let me see." So she had another meeting. She had another meeting where she was distributing the mask, and apparently there were close to 800 people, and that's when I said, "Oh my gosh, we are definitely going to need masks." And we just went, broadcasted it anywhere and everywhere. We had people driving as far. I remember these two women drove overnight all the way from North Dakota to drop off masks because that day. And then we had people come in from Mankato and all that kind of stuff, just for all of that. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's 11 to.
No, it's all good.
But that's how we created community. You know, when you have people, when you have a mission, and you have the world, the universe, and your clients united with you in that mission, change happens. I think so.
I promise you, I don't know if anyone will believe it, but we never discussed or thought about that we would get business from that. We just did it because we didn't have anything else to do then anyway. And it just seemed like it was something that we could do, and it happened. And so we did it, and we got so much business out of that. It was unbelievable. People just started
We
calling
weren't even
us
expecting
to
that.
buy, and interest rates were low, and people wanted to move because they needed different housing arrangements. And we sold a lot of houses in 2020 and 2021 due to that.
But we weren't even
Ironically.
thinking about it. Do you see what I mean? People, you have to put yourself out there and find. Now the word yourself, you're the only one who can discover what yourself
And
is.
by the way, none of it had any real estate message. We didn't put a flyer on things saying, "Hey, we're the Vaz+Harwood team," and I'm not saying don't do that. We do that on our food drives and all kinds of things too, but we didn't do anything with that and other stuff. We just did it. And it brought people into our funnel indirectly. It just brought people into our world. So we've got about 5 minutes on this because I want to respect everyone's
Be
time.
the
I said
brand
I'd keep
that's
this to 45
So that
minutes.
again, this comes back to everything that
It
we
actually
have
brings
said.
back to the whole thing, really.
Be the brand that's you. You have to do a little bit of self-discovery of how do you want to find your clients? How do you? This is in fact, this is a very cathartic process where you literally have to figure out what you want to do. I would take it one step further where you would have to discover what you are. What the
Yeah.
definition of you
And
is.
coming from advertising, we worked for big ad agencies and we worked on branding, and I did a lot of brand work. And a brand really isn't a logo. A logo stands for something that is it lets the customer know that this is the icon for this set of values or quality or product or whatever. and this is what you can expect. And so the brand, everyone uh, who is in real estate or really any other career, you can have a personal brand that's you, and it's going to be a combination of your values and actions and what
Mm-hmm.
people come to know you for. Part of my brand too is I play the guitar, and maybe people know me, for that too. Into astronomy. That's part of my personal brand,
His,
aside from the
your
business.
brand is also, Andrew's
Yeah.
brand is also, he talks a lot about financial health, and people apparently love that when he talks about
But
that.
you can go deep into that, and it's back to what I was saying earlier. People do want to know you more than they want to just deal with a faceless, average, um, or, typical salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know you. People are hungry for that. That's who they like doing business with. Um, so if you want to make kind of an overarching thing here,
Mm-hmm.
um, you can,
Attract your
and I'm not
customers.
disputing prospecting versus marketing. I think both are good. Um, but
Both
obviously,
are
if you
good.
didn't pick this up by now, I much prefer marketing. So, and I think both of us have done very little
Yeah,
prospecting.
yeah.
And so you can absolutely be an attractor, and you can get the people to come to you and get your phone to ring versus if you want to do it, myriad opportunities are
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cool thing about that is I really think there are many more ways, non-traditional, non-salesy ways, than there are, just making sales calls. And we talked about a lot of stuff that worked
Mm-hmm.
for us already, but I mean, I just made a short little
Mm-hmm.
list. Obviously, social media is a big one, and that's just, just to say social media, that's a massive expanse of platforms and strategies. You could just stop it there. I mean, social media is enough to build your whole career on
Correct.
in real estate without really doing anything else.
Yep.
But other things, just to tie it up with a bow a little bit, that we've done are, a lot of events,
Pop
pop
buys.
buys for clients,
Um,
market info kind of things, just
mm-hmm.
to kind of keep people in our world informed about what's going on in the market. People like that, make us the go-to. Community building, like we were
Mm-hmm.
just talking about, food
Open
drives.
houses.
By the way, all of these can be tied into
Yep.
social media
Oh,
too, so that drives your community and engagement. And heck, you can even track it now and
yep.
see how many people,
Yep.
400 people or something, saw that video that I put up for
Yep.
this class. That's
Yep.
interesting to me. I
Yep.
would have, if I had to take a guess, I would have said 12 people, but 400 people watched that.
Yep.
So I'm
And
like, okay, that told me they did something right.
correct. And there's also things like, and by pop buys, we mean, dropping off gifts to veterans, etc., and to nurses and teachers. We tend to do that a lot. We like to drop off little gifts to, and when we find out that a client is sick or something, we like to drop off soup and all that just to say, hey, we love you. So
So we hate sales and we don't do it. We do all this other stuff. And
just be nice.
in the last minute or two, as I was putting this together, I thought, I want to make a point just to close this out, and then we can talk any comments, thoughts, whatever. Um, you do need to close the deal. And but what I mean by that is you do need to get, paperwork signed, and you need to, at a certain point with the customer, you do need to, uh, understand that we're doing business together.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's called closing in traditional sales. My best example that sticks in my mind is when I was buying a car once, or almost going to buy a car. The car, salesman said, "So what do I have to do to put that baby in your driveway?" That was his closing. It didn't work on me, but so, um,
But
uh,
yes, ultimately,
so
yeah.
yeah, what I want to plant in your head is that just get confident when it's the right time to you'll start to know as you talk to people and come at this genuinely. You're not going to be weak here. You're going to, and um, people want you to kind of close the deal at a certain point. They want to do business with you. And so you'll start to get a sense of that this is the time to say, may I have our paperwork sent over to you for buyer representation, or Would you be comfortable signing a listing
Correct.
contract? Everybody has their own scripts and
Yeah.
ways to do that. My point is, you do need. It's not a salesy thing to do it. It's maybe salesy to do it at the wrong time when the customer's not ready for that. And so as you get better at having conversations and relationships with people, you'll start to pick up on it that they're ready to do business and let's go. Because then they want you to take action. Nobody wants you to be nobody wants to be forgotten about. They might think if they don't hear from Andy, well, he didn't care. He forgot about me and he never even thought enough of me to ask if he could send the contract over. And Andy's thinking, I don't want to be a pushy salesperson and never send the contract. So
It's a very
just
fine line.
yeah,
And also when you're with clients, etc., you need to figure out how much boundaries to put on. I've had realtors. We had a client just call us up recently, and I bluntly asked, "Why aren't you going with your past realtor?" Oh well, they got drunk at. We invited them to a party, and they got drunk, and were making jokes about our buying and selling process about us with our guest, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So, there's a very fine line, very, very fine line. Even if you get invited to your clients' home, always be at your professional best. No matter how much you like the client or the client loves you, always be at your professional best.
good advice.
Yep.
Well, it's 47 after. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and listening, or if you're seeing this later, recorded, thanks for watching. We'll probably